it's just so true that you learn stuff by reading, you know?
True.
Hello, and welcome to Read the Last Page,
A Yap session
book club
with your two favorite long-distance best friends.
The book we read this month is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner.
And since we finally read the last page, let's talk about it. Hi, B. How are you?
I'm good. Yesterday, I walked the entire length of Manhattan.
That's crazy to me. By the way, I saw that your bestie was there with you who did that, and she was wearing Birkenstocks, and I was like, I hope she was comfy cozy. I really do.
She wore those, so she had tennis shoes on.
Good, okay.
For over half of it, and we like stopped at her apartment at one point, like for a bathroom break, and she prefers to wear like sandals and flats. That was probably the first time I ever saw her in tennis shoes, honestly. Gotcha. And she was like, I can't do it, I have to switch.
I love that.
So,
well, honestly, that kind of speaks to the power of Birkenstocks, because those shoes are so comfy.
yeah
You can walk the length of Manhattan in Birkenstocks and be okay.
So we walked 17 miles. If you do it more in a straight shot, like it could really be more like 13, 14, but we took a couple detours. Okay. We saw the oldest house in Manhattan.
Ooh, how old is it? Do you know?
That's a good question. It's built somewhere in like the 1700s, so like late, I think.
Nice.
Anyways, that was my bestie with me, Heidi, and I actually asked her, can I name you on the podcast, because I'm always talking about you. The cyber world deserves to know who she is. She's my bestie here in New York that, like, her goal for the year was to read 2 books a week.
Ooh, that's so slay.
She's a little bit behind because she's been busy with school, but she's like catching up. I'm just like, I read 29 books last year, so my goal this year is 30.
Yeah, which is still a very good number. Let's not forget, you guys, many people in America do not even finish 1 book a year. So
and we're in a literacy crisis.
Yeah, just a little bit. But that's so sweet. What made you guys want to walk Manhattan? Is that like a New York tradition, or is that just something that you kind of
I wouldn't really say it's a tradition, more so of just like we've been seeing the girlies on TikTok do it.
Oh, okay.
So Heidi was just like, she had kind of mentioned it. Oh, we should do that sometime. But she knew that I'm leaving next Saturday, which will be like the day after we post this. Okay. So she knew I was busy. So I think she posted on her Instagram story, like, does anyone want to walk Manhattan with me Friday or Saturday? And I was like, wait, I'm actually free though. So let me go ahead and get in there. Just like for fun, just like to say that we did it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like, you know, having like, it's not necessarily like a fitness goal, but just like setting a goal and accomplishing it, you know?
Yeah, like that's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
It feels like a 30 before 30 kind of activity, you know what I mean?
And we went to a coffee shop that's like way more north than we live. So, you know, it's like, it's somewhere that like we would have never just like found on our own, because it's like, why would we take the subway up for 30 minutes? But it was so cute. And then we got sandwiches at a place like kind of near like Lincoln Center area. So like we both have walked through that place a lot, but it's kind of, some of the places are kind of bougie, you know? And so it's like, I would never stop there normally, but we were like, we need a sandwich. So we got little sodas from the 7-Eleven to like power us through the end. But yeah, it was awesome. My like feet and calves like were definitely, I could tell they were like getting like swollen, you know, like that feeling of like, it's not like so painful, but just like okay, like I can't wait to take a shower and put my feet up, you know. But yeah, so I'm feeling good. I'm like feeling like, oh, I accomplished something. So
yeah. Sorry, you froze for a second.
Oh, how are you doing?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing well. I feel like, so we haven't recorded for like 3 weeks maybe. So I feel like in these 3 weeks, girl, the highs and lows, the epic highs and lows of these 3 weeks. First of all, I had to get a wisdom tooth pulled like 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, which that was fun. You guys, I've been having real dental problems, and I don't I don't know why it's hit me the year I get on my own dental plan. I don't know why that happened, but that did happen. And, you know, that's okay. God was trying to test me, and I said, I will try to rise to the challenge.
He must think you're one of his strongest soldiers.
He did, because I had to go through dental pain. I'm sure someone else was given a lot lesser load, and I'm okay with taking that. Anyway, but yeah, it was tough. Like, let's just recap everything I've gone through. So,
okay.
In April, I had to get a root canal. Okay, cool.
Tragic.
And then, of course, when you get a root canal, you have to go back 2 more times, once to get a temporary crown on, and then to get a permanent crown on. And then when I was getting my permanent crown on, it's when my back wisdom tooth, which, by the way, I still have my wisdom teeth. Sorry, that was me flipping my hair for anybody who couldn't see that. Yeah, I think because of like the temporary crown, it hurt a lot getting that on. I think I just had so much trauma in my mouth or something that like my wisdom tooth took the blow. So then I had to get that taken out, which it was fine. It was only 1 tooth. I really was kind of like, I got the easiest deal. But anyway, so I just been having like mouth pain and then recovery pain for like the past month and a half.
Wow. Yeah.
But I finally, for the first time, feel great. So like life is so good. I know.
Okay,
I was really happy about that. But yeah, I also got really good news yesterday that I think I can share with the pod. I got into grad school.
Yay! Oh my gosh!
So,
that's awesome!
Yes, I'm gonna be going to get my master's in library information sciences, which, if you guys don't know, I work in the library currently. And so that is my plan. I want to be a librarian. So
I'm like about to cry.
Really? Wait, that's really sweet.
Yes, because like in high school we always talked about one day we should like become librarians. And, like, you're actually doing it now. I'm so happy.
Thank you so much.
It's so awesome.
Thank you so much.
That's so great.
Really nervous because I haven't been to school in like 4 years, and so I think it's gonna be really hard. But like, you know, it's like what's really driving me right now is you know, libraries are in a state of crisis a little bit. You know, people are kind of we're facing a real like scary threat of like defunding, and a lot of our grants are being pulled currently under this administration, stuff like that. So it's kind of scary, but what's great is like when you step into a library, you can kind of tell that everybody there kind of has a hard job, but like has so much passion for it. You have to have passion for the work to do it. Yeah. And it's one of the few spaces I think that like really like their main goal is just to like help people. Yeah. You know? And I feel like there's just like so much like love in that career. There's so little careers I think that you can find where like there's a lot of love and like excitement for the work, and I feel like that's just what you get with librarianship. And so that's what's really pushing me through. I'm like, I should get my degree, even though it's a scary time to kind of try to do that, but you know, everybody wish me luck. This will be like a long journey. Yeah.
Do you know how long you have to go? Like,
well, because I'm doing it while I'm working full time, and so really the most I can do is 1 or 2 classes a semester, and so I'm planning to it's probably going to be like a 4-year journey for me. Yeah, it'll take until my 30s at least. So, like I said, a long journey.
Because then, like, it's like, oh, you know, we always say like it's scary that we're getting close to 30, but it's like getting close to 30 for you means getting to be a librarian. So
that's true. I'm gonna be excited for my 30th.
Yeah.
This is true.
That is so awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so excited.
You're honestly the first person outside of my family that I've told. So.
Yeah, because it's like you're telling the podcast, but like this isn't getting put up for like another week or whatever.
Yep.
So right now it's just me and you that know.
Yeah. And it's so true. It's so true. Yeah. So anyway, that's been a lot of stuff has happened, but that's been where I've been at. But you know what? Excited to come on the pod and actually have news. I feel like I'm always just like, nothing's going on.
Yeah, it really has been the highs and lows.
The epic highs and lows. Truly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well that's so awesome. And now it's like, I mean, you already had like an English degree, but once you're studying like library stuff, like now, like we're legit. Like our podcast.
This is true.
Like we're not just two random girls.
No.
Maybe
You're talking to two experts. No, because you've got degrees in the arts, my girl. So you're talking to two people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah. We're so like legit now. Okay.
Exactly.
I love it. Yay. Speaking of libraries and books, our book this month, Crying in H Mart.
Yeah.
This was actually our first memoir of the pod.
First nonfiction that we've read.
Yeah, true.
Which is crazy. But also, I think it makes sense because we've talked about this before, but it's low-key hard to review nonfiction. And so...
Yeah, it's like their life was interesting. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's hard to kind of pick apart, quote-unquote, plots. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I feel like this was a good first...
Yeah.
For us.
Truly.
For the pod,
Truly. So, first of all, before we get into anything, in this podcast, if this is your first time listening, what we do is we do a spoiler-free section, and then we go into our spoiler section. So, we'll start off with our spoiler-free section, kind of discuss our thoughts. One of us will give a good summary. I'm assuming it's going to be B.
Okay.
I can do it. I actually think I can do this one. But just so you know, if you haven't read this book, we'll give you kind of like, you're safe here right now. Like, we'll give you a quick little run through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually think this is I think I texted this to you, but one of my favorite memoirs I've read. It's difficult for me to really like memoirs because a lot of times it's either somebody who like doesn't really have a history of writing, or like somebody who like maybe I just don't have much interest in what the story is. And so like sometimes I'm reading a book and I can tell it's like ghostwritten and I'm like, like what's the point of me reading this right now?
Yeah.
But I was thinking when I was reading this, it was reminding me a lot of Jeanette McCurdy's book. I'm glad my mom died.
I haven't read it yet, but I really want to.
Yeah, that was a really good book because I think Jeanette McCurdy, she's an actress, so like no one really knew she had that like talent for writing. And then like not only was she really good at writing, but she also had this like really crazy kind of story that like had so much complexity and like a lot of like grief in the same ways that like this book handled grief. And so I loved that book, and this book I think is like one of the only other memoirs that I've really, really loved because again, it like does that thing where like both of these people can write so well, but like have such like an interesting story to tell. So yeah, and like I really liked the way it was written. But before we get into that, who's gonna give a synopsis? I vote you. Okay, I'll do it. I can do it.
Okay. I don't feel equipped to do this one. I don't know why.
That is so fine. Okay, so if you guys have not heard of Crying in H Mart, this is a memoir by Michelle Zauner, who is actually a rock musician. She goes by Japanese Breakfast. So this book is about her relationship with her mother, and it really breaks down the year when she was 25, her mom got diagnosed with cancer, and it was a really rapid kind of deteriorating 6 months for her mom. And so really what the book is about is Michelle trying to dissect her relationship with her mother, and more importantly kind of that relationship and how it really was her window, I guess, to her Korean culture. Because her mom existed, that was kind of where she got a lot of her knowledge about being Korean, because her mom was born in Korea. Michelle was born in Korea, and she immigrated here when she was young. And so once her mom died, she found herself really missing a lot of her identity. So it's called Crying in H Mart because Michelle, after her mom passed away, found herself going to H Mart to kind of try and like replicate the food and the meals that her mother would make, which an H Mart is like an Asian grocery store. And so she would go there and she would end up like in hysterics because she couldn't read any of the signs and she didn't know what she was looking for, and she just realized that she was so unprepared for like the loss of her mother because it made her lose a whole lot more than she realized. It really like talks about what it's like to have a complicated relationship with your mother what it's like to be a Korean American. Also kind of what it means for you to not have so much understanding of like your identity because of having to kind of integrate into American culture as a young child. I don't know. I just thought it was like a really, it brought up a lot of topics that, you know, I don't get to see in a lot of nonfiction books or memoirs that I read. And so I felt it was just so fascinating. And like she does a really, really great job talking about it, like from her firsthand experience.
Yeah. And speaking of like, things you don't necessarily always get in fiction, so like a main theme in this book is the food, and that's like, you know, all the meals her mother cooked for her and her family and what she ate in Korea, and going to the store and try to replicate that. And so all of the food is like described in such detail. Sometimes in fiction books, if there's like too much like description of like seemingly mundane, like okay, why do I need to know every single spice that's in the dish? Or like I can sometimes get like, okay, like let's move on, you know what I mean? But in this book, it was like I was like hanging on to every word, and I wanted to know the details of every dish that her mom was making for her and how her aunt was like doing it differently. I don't know, it was just interesting. Like I was so curious. I wanted to learn and I wanted to know. A lot of fiction books that I'd read, it's like the plot is more so what's moving along. Yeah. And so we're not like necessarily stopping and setting the entire scene necessarily. But this book was not really about getting to the end of some story. It was about diving into all of these significant moments. And part of that diving in was talking about what she was eating or cooking, or, you know, because that was what was really important then. I don't know. It was different. I just really liked it because, yeah, I don't read a lot of nonfiction. Yeah. And so I was just like enjoying being exposed to like a different type of like narration, I guess.
So I read this physically, but I also had the audiobook, and so I was like rotating back and forth. And yeah, so she narrates the audiobook, and I just feel like I love it whenever people narrate their own memoirs. Like I just feel like I can like feel, it just makes so much, like I can feel it. It was almost like I felt like I was almost like reading like her diary in a way. And like I loved. Can you hear the lawnmower going outside?
I don't think so.
Okay, we don't have any grass. I don't know what they're doing. I really am so confused why there's a lawnmower. I loved how personal she was able to make this. Yeah. I think it's like really difficult. I was listening to also a couple of interviews that she did after this came out, and one thing about her is that her Grammy winning, I think it won a Grammy, if not then nominated, her Grammy nominated, perhaps winning album Jubilee came out 2 months after this book was released, and so she had this insane press tour where she essentially had to go promote an album and a book at the same time. And every interview with talking about this book was so difficult, I think, for me to listen to, because I was like, this poor girl has to like talk so much about her mother's death, like ad nauseum, like just like so much. I think it's just so hard to just like share your grief with the world like that. But I love the way that like she was able to kind of really capture like her mother in this book, like without going too much into it. Like her mom from the very beginning she doesn't try to make her into this saint. I think it's such a great way to write a memoir, to be like, my mom was not perfect, but like she was the most important person in my life. When you have a difficult relationship with your parent, I think it's like the journey to kind of grieve them is really intense and crazy and it's like so personal, and I feel like the way she captured it was like, I'm just really glad that she did it. And I think it was like really difficult to read, but like at the end it felt kind of almost cathartic in a way for me. So I don't know. I appreciated it. I thought it was just a very, very vulnerable, honest take of like a mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah. Well, and I think when you were talking about, which by the way, if you've got the lawnmower, my roommate just started taking a shower, so we've got shower water.
Too much noise.
Maybe coming through my mic. So sorry to the audience if you can hear our ambient noise. But anyways, you talking about her like not trying to like write her mom in an ideal way, like, you know, sometimes she was really upset with her mom and sometimes they didn't get along.
Yeah.
And just you talking about it was making me think about how we've talked about this several times. I have a hard time when I'm journaling, like sometimes being honest about like the hard parts, but it's like, you know, reading a book like this, which is like someone's real life, and it's like there's so much more depth and like beauty to the story because it's authentic, and she's not just writing like, my mom was the best person in my life and I love her so much, and you know what I mean, like we got that she was the best person and she did love her so much even despite the hardships that they had. It's like I need to take a lesson from this book about like how I write in my journal about my life. It's more valuable and fulfilling to like have the people in your life like rounded out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, honestly. Yes, it's very true. And I think it's also in some way, she allows her mom to exist as a whole person in this book.
Yes.
And I really love that. And like it adds a lot of depth and like also clarity to like her whole journey. There are certain things that like she consistently will like repeat throughout the book. And at first, the first time you hear it, like, this is so crass. The second time you hear it, you're like, I guess this kind of like makes sense. And then the third time you hear it, it like transforms completely, and it's just like things like that. It's just like that's all a part of the journey, and we wouldn't have that if she wasn't able to really tap into like every single raw emotion that she could in this. So I don't know. I really appreciate it.
We recommend this book, or at least I do. I'm as maybe one of the first memoirs I've read, like definitely I feel like in my adult life. I've probably read some in high school or in like when I was researching in middle school or whatever. I've read my math professor's memoir. It's not published, but this was really good if you're not always so keen on like nonfiction or memoirs. Like this, I think, is a great first one.
Yeah,
especially if you're a woman with a mother.
Yes.
Like,
oh my gosh,
with any, I would say any relationship dynamic with a mom, like I feel like there will be parts that you, for better or for worse, like you will relate to, and you will feel Michelle's pain or Michelle's joy or whatever. Because, you know, I think, you know, mother-daughter is just such a special and unique relationship, and
truly
she's very, like we said, she's just very honest in this book, and I just enjoyed reading it. So
so like this is one of the only books so far in this book club. I've given 3 books 4 stars, and this is not 4 stars, 3 books 5 stars, and this is the 4th book I'm giving 5 stars to. I think I might try to read this one more time in my 20s, and then I don't think I'm going to be able to read it ever again. The whole time, 'cause I'm also somebody, which like, not to get too much into me, but like I'm somebody who I find myself so often like borrowing grief from the future. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm always terrified of like my mom dying, losing my friends, people, mommy. Like anything like that. And it like causes me a lot of anxiety, and I think that, you know, she's very, very, very honest about those last 6 months with her mom and kind of the whole whole battle with cancer, and it's like a very just like not forgiving disease, and it's not pretty at all. It's super upsetting to read at times, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pick it up again if like I have to go through something like that. But her wisdom and like her journey, I think she really, there's a lot of like really great nuggets in there of like things that I just feel like will comfort me in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my review for this was 5 stars. I'm never going to read it again. And I say that with affection and love. Like, truly an incredible book. I want to know so badly if she's going to do more writing in the future. I would love to see if she goes ahead and like does like a fiction book or something.
Yeah, because obviously like she writes songs, so she's got like, I mean, and obviously we can see the talent in this book too, but she's definitely got like a gift for writing.
Yeah.
So,
which like, she studied creative writing in college. So like she's got the degree for it. Sense. So I would love to read whatever else she wants to do. Yeah. So anyway, that's Crying in H Mart. I think for the spoiler free section, again, I think it's so difficult to actually like be like spoiler free memoir.
Right. Because it's like, there's not like plot points.
No. And
like,
I don't want to be like, the twist is that like her mom passes away. Like, no, like that's the book. And so
but we just might talk more about like more specific things. And if you want to kind of read everything with your own eyes for the first time, like go read it and then come back.
For sure. Okay, well, sweet, we're getting into the spoiler section, so if you want to leave, we will see you next time. Okay, so let's see. Do you have any really huge things that you want to start with?
I mean, nothing honestly is that huge. Everything, I just have a lot of like little details, lots of,
connecting to yourself.
Text to self
as
let me just start with like a silly one.
Sure.
But they were talking about with the Korean barbecue. She said, oh, and the little cup of pickled cubes of white radish that always comes with it. I went to a Korean barbecue place for the first time like just a couple weeks ago. And then I actually went back with another friend because it was so good. But they brought little cups of these little white cubes, and we were like, what is this? And I tried one and I was like, maybe not for me. Like it wasn't like so horrible or anything, but I was just like, oh, like that's interesting. I don't know what I'm eating. But anyways, then when I read that in the book, I was like, oh, now I know what that is.
Hey, nice. I love that.
Because I had just like, I'd eaten that literally twice in the past just like 2 or 3 weeks, but I just read that page like the other day. Cool. And that was just kind of fun. Like it's just so true that you learn stuff by reading,
True. Well, so what was interesting with me with this book too, it's like I don't have like so much knowledge about South Korea, but like I do actually have a bit because like obviously South Korea has a huge entertainment industry, and so it's like I have listened to K-pop, I watch K-dramas, so it's like I know a lot about the food and somewhat about the culture. And so it's like a lot of the Korean words that like she was like saying in this, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I like oma or like kunchana, like things like that. I'm like, I know those words. But also it's like I also know the food because also like food's huge in Korea, as she talks about in this book. And so just like I loved being able, I was like, I know exactly what the meal she's talking about looks like
like feeling like, oh, I can kind of like, obviously it's not part of my history and my culture, but it's like I know a little bit about what she's talking about.
It was nice.
It was fun.
I also like the way that she like kind of holds your hand through it. Because also it makes a lot of sense because it's just like she's kind of stumbling through a lot of things too, and so it makes a lot of sense that like she's also talking us through it because I think she knows what it's like to be confused about it. These are the spices that we put in there, or this is what it tastes like, or this is what my mom says. I really like that. I also like learning about like just like little things about just her culture, like though I'm thinking about like when she goes to Korea for the first time and everyone's like complimenting her face because like the Korean beauty standards are a little different than the American beauty standards, and I'm like, just like even little things like that, I'm like, oh, I like getting like little windows into like differences like that.
Speaking of culture, we should mention, like, part of the reason we chose to read this book
yes.
was for Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, which was May, which is technically still May today, as we're recording. So yeah, that was another reason we were like, we kind of had this on the list, and we were like, let's read something like kind of on theme for the month, you know, learn something beyond our scope of knowledge that we have so far. So
yes, and honestly, anyways. I will be honest, because like when I first wanted to read this book, the only thing I knew about it was like it was about her relationship with her mother, and I knew that her mom passes in it, and it's about her grief. But I kind of didn't know about like the whole. I should have, because of the title, but I didn't know about like that whole like real journey she has to go with, like reintroducing herself or just introducing herself to like her Korean culture. And so I didn't really understand before going into this how much it really does talk about being a Korean American. Yeah, I was so excited to kind of like read about all that, like just like her trips to Korea. I was like, yes, like this is so interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah,
like we've never been over there.
No. Sounds fun, but
have you ever been like on the Eastern Hemisphere?
I've never been outside of the United States.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Unless if you count all those TikToks about the 7-Elevens in Korea.
What?
Okay, so you're definitely not on this side. Okay, the people will know. The people will know. Trust. But there's a TikTok trend in Korea where like they have incredible 7-Elevens because they're just like very, very well packaged, and like they've got like a little area that you can eat your food in. And so people go in and just like get a drink and then get like some like ramen and then eat the ramen there, and it looks so good every single time. And so, like, to me, I'm like, this is almost like I'm traveling there. I feel like I'm there with them. You know what I mean? Because they have the cameras.
Like when you go...
They have the cameras on their head.
No, because it's like POV.
I'm like, yes, I'm literally here.
Yeah, I've never seen...
What's sad is, like, sometimes I also come across videos of people trying to do that with Quick Trip, like, in inspiration of the 7-Elevens in Asia. And I'm like, putting, like... a hot dog in a plastic container, like a bright red hot dog, flaming hot dog in a gas station plastic container. I'm like, it's not hitting the same. Also, American gas stations are nasty. We do not clean those things.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Sorry. But anyway, go back to what you were saying.
Nothing. I was just saying, like, neither of us have ever been to the Eastern Hemisphere at all, you know?
Yeah.
Can I tell you maybe one of my favorite text-to-text connections, because guess what text it relates to?
Is it Little Women?
Yes.
Nice.
Okay, so in the book on page 112, at least in my version, I don't know if they're all formatted the same.
Okay. But
her mom says, I pronounce this as Nami. I don't know if that's the right way. Okay. Nami is much better at this kind of thing. My mother confided in me as we watched her older sister exchange the customary pleasantries with a new circle of visitors. It made me feel close to her, an admission of awkwardness from someone I'd always perceived as the paragon of poise and authority. And then she talks about, like, it shed light that, like, her mom was not always grace personified. She once was defiant and restless and blah blah blah. And so I wrote down, I am angry every day. You know, like,
yes.
You know, when Joe is like, you're never angry, and Marmy's like, I'm angry every day. And, like, Joe's worldview is changed. Her view of her mother is changed. I really thought of that because that was, like, the first time she was saying, like, Michelle was saying, like, oh, my mom isn't, like, always, like, knowing everything that's supposed to be done and perfectly graceful and knows all the formalities of everything. Like, her mom's admitting, like, yeah, like, my sister's better at this than me. Because I think, you know, a lot of us as kids, you know, you grow up and you think your parents have all the answers and they know everything, and because they do when you're little, you know, at least to the degree that we need them to. And then when you kind of get old enough to, I don't don't want to say like learn their faults, but like see maybe where their weaknesses are, or like the things that they're not knowledgeable about.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, have you always been like that? Like,
yeah. I feel like there's this whole journey that you have to go through in your life where you like find out that your parents are human.
mm-hmm.
There's another quote in this book that really stuck with me, and it's when her mom tells her, I just realized I've never met someone like you.
Yeah.
And like it reminds me of in Lady Bird, when her mom and her are in the Goodwill trying on prom dresses, and Lady Bird comes out of the changing room and she asks her mom, do you like me? And her mom goes, don't be ridiculous, like, I love you. And she's like, yes, but do you like me? And there's this thing with like mothers and daughters, I think, where everyone probably goes through a difficult time with their mom. When you're in the thick of like that relationship where you guys love each other so much, but I think like the imbalances of like maybe power, maybe authority, something like that, feel like so weird because you're on the brink of young adulthood, but you feel so like, you know, like coddled in a way. I think it's just such a hard time for like girls and their moms to really like relate to each other or find like the moments of like love between each other. But then in your 20s, what the wonderful thing that happens is that your mom and you kind of almost can start becoming friends. And so I like that like once kind of the dynamic of mother and daughter softens, you kind of become people who choose to have conversations with each other and choose to hang out with each other. And I don't know, I just like really like the idea that it's like you learn these new traits about people. And like the idea that her mom kind of takes that moment to be like, you're just such a unique individual, I've never met anyone like you. And like it's like that moment where she realizes that her mom really does like the person that she's become. And like, and then there's also that part too where I know in her mom she probably feels really happy because she had a part in raising that person. And so it's like a moment of pride for her mom, but then also like a moment of like comfort and almost like closing a book that maybe she needed closed from her teenage years. I don't know, I just found it like I loved that. I love being a daughter to a mother because
and I think that quote also reveals that her mom maybe has realized like almost she wasn't outright saying like, I'm sorry for the times that I didn't meet you where you were and I didn't understand you, but it's a little olive branch and saying like, she's not outright saying I'm sorry, but she is in a way like, hey, I've realized you're just different than anyone I've met, and like I need to, you know, like I can just approach you differently and then we can get along, you know. And it's weird to say like, oh, I liked that, because it's not like the author chose for her mom to say that, but I liked reading that, you know.
It was a great moment.
I thought, as someone who, you know, doesn't really swear ever, except for when I'm like singing along to songs, you know. If I'm not mistaken, the F word was not used until page 149, which was like pretty far into the book. And it was like this was the page where we learn that her mother's about to die, and like Michelle is obviously very upset, and she's saying like, the doctor said he was gonna like, you know, keep her from feeling pain. He made a promise and he effing broke it. And like that to me, I thought was like a very powerful first use of kind of expletive language, because it wasn't thrown around, and it was like, it was in the time of her most hurt and her most anger. And it was, I just like found that very compelling and effective, and like to wait like that far into the book before you like introduce like a word like that. I don't know, I was just really struck by the use of language, like honestly through the whole book. Like I just think Michelle Zauner she knows how to write a good sentence, you know, like
true. Oh my gosh.
You know, like an effective sentence.
Her control of language is so, like, I strive to have that. I just loved I felt like every sentence was so well crafted. One thing too I thought was really interesting about just the emotions that she's able to like put into her writing, but more so I think in every act of the book, is like, I think a lot of the times when she's talking about when she's younger and these fights that she had with her parents, I don't feel so much anger. I feel a lot of like sadness in it. And then what's interesting is like throughout the chapters where her mom is like going through her cancer and actively dying in front of her, I don't know how much sadness I see in that. I see a lot of anger and a lot of like frustration in the fact that she can't help in the way that she wants to. And so that makes a lot of sense where like that's why she's using this explicit language. I feel her anger literally off the page. And then the grief part, like the sadness, like you can feel the depression in the last act of this book. You'd think that you'd feel so much more sadness, I think, in the parts, like a lot of anger, I think, in her childhood, and maybe a lot of anger in the grief after that. But I think it's like I'd expected to feel so much more sadness in the parts where her mom was dying, but like I could just feel her anger, and it makes so much sense. Like it's such a horrible situation to be in, and like I can't see you having anything other than anger throughout all of that. And I just felt like that was a really like so emotional. I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but like
no, you are, because you think of someone dying, your immediate thought is that's sad and I'm crying, you know. But there's like a sadness encompasses like a large range of emotions, one being upsetness, which leads to anger, you know.
And it's just like, oh my gosh, the whole part where I'm just thinking about the woman who came to live with them, Kay, and then like her dad, like her feeling like one was being too smothering and then the other one wasn't helping enough, and she felt like she just did not know how to fix what was happening around her. There's a quote where after her mom passes, they're kind of all looking around like, what do we do? And her first thought that she has is like, my mom would have known what to do. That feels so like heartbreaking. Just you understand. I just like felt that confusion and like the frustration and like that weird feeling of like, once she's gone, what do we do? Like, how do we fix this? And it's like, unfortunately for her, specifically like with her dad, I don't think there was any way for her to fix it.
Kind of related to that, there's a part where she says, she's talking about like how her mom, you know, her mom's job, her role in life is being a wife and mother. And when Michelle is like saying like, oh, I want to be in a band and like I want to do all this stuff, and she's like can't understand how, like, she's like, is my mom truly happy and fulfilled, just like, you know, basically fulfilling the needs of her and her dad and like their home? And you know, she's kind of contemplating like, oh, maybe that really is like what she's called to do and meant to do. And like then you get to those moments where she's gone and Michelle's thinking, well, mom would have known what to do. And it's like that's because that was where her mother was called to be and was like compelled to be, and where she thrived and found her joy was being the person that, you know, that like knew all the details and knew how to take care of a situation. And when Michelle was a little bit younger, you know, like we all do, we take for granted when we're younger and we don't realize like the people in our life that are taking care of things, because you just think like, oh, that's just supposed to happen. But it's like that's a really valuable skill that, you know, the rest of us rely on when there's someone in our life that can be that person that, you know, is gonna know how to handle something. And then the three of them, when they lost her, they're like, who knows what to do now? You know, they didn't feel that the depth of the importance of everything she was doing until it was taken away from them, you know?
Yeah. You talked about like how her mom and her kind of didn't really connect over her music. I think her mom felt very like nervous about her music career. And so, but there's this quote at the end, my favorite quote in this book. I'm going to read it. But it's towards like the very end of it. And she's talking about how after her mom dies, these really interesting magical moments for her music career start happening. Like she gets a record deal and she's able to travel the world. Like she opens for Mitski, and then she's able to go to like South Korea and perform in South Korea and have that real moment of like, I think it felt like such a what's that word? Closure.
Like
closure.
Full circle. Oh yeah,
yes. Full circle or closure, either one. But like a moment of just like, she's able to like really feel fulfilled, I think, in just like being able to connect with her mom through her music in this way. But there's a quote where she says, because she's wondering why did all this start to happen, and she goes, if there was a God, it seemed my mother must have had her foot on his neck, demanding good things come my way, that if we had to be ripped apart right at our turning point, just when things were really starting to get good, the least God could do was make a few of her daughter's pipe dreams come true. Ooh, I love that. Listen, so like I just love the fact that her mom and her never got to like bond over her music, and I think it's just so beautiful that at the end of this part of her story, she realizes that she's found herself connecting with her mother through the things that she, Michelle, loves and can connect to people about, which is her music. But then also she's able to connect with her mother with the thing that she knows her mother connected with people about, which is food and like her culture. And I think that that is such a beautiful kind of like bookend to, I think, that relationship. I just love that she was able to find, once again, like the closure in both of those parts of her. Yeah. And it's like maybe that at one point this felt like such a fractured part of their relationship, something that neither one of them could really feel like fully comfortable connecting over. I love one part of her journey was just like she was able to really use like the grief of losing her mom to heal those points and to really like finish that journey to make it feel like her mom is in everything.
Because mom is in everything, you know?
Mom is literally in everything. And
her first two words being Uma and then mom. That's so sweet. One of my favorite text to self connections is when they're watching like an actress who's in Law and Order give like an interview about losing her mom or something. They're just like watching something random on the TV, and then it ends up being really like
sad,
poignant or whatever. Sure. I think I used that word correctly. Anyways, so they're crying because they're both watching what they know is going to become like kind of Michelle's future. And this is what the book says. This is what her mom is saying to her. When you were a child, you always used to cling to me. Everywhere we went, my mother whispered, struggling to get the words out. And now that you're older, here you are, still clinging to me. And this just made me think of me and my mommy because I've always been kind of like, I love to hug. I love to be close. I love, I'm like a physical touch type of person, and like I love like hugging my mom, and it's gonna make me cry.
Yeah, no, like thinking about my mom. I will be crying too, and this, not to worry.
Like, you know, like I loved that when I was little. I still liked that when I was like a teenager and stuff. But now it's like, now that I don't live by my mom, it's like every time I see her, it's like I always want to cling to her, you know, and like I always want to like one last hug before, you know, I get into the airport, or like when I'm home, it's like first thing I do, you know, right when I see my mom is hug her, and like, you know, like, can I sit by you on the couch?
Yeah.
That type of stuff. And like, you know, that was really emotional to read because I like was like oh, like it felt like in a way like kind of like me and my mom. I mean, so much of this book is like, I don't ever want to be in this situation, you know, and like having to put me and my mom in their situation was like, you know, that's really hard to imagine. And anyways, I just wanted to talk about that because we're talking about moms, and
yes,
I love and miss my mom.
So in one of the interviews I was listening to with her, she says that that's like the one thing that she remembers, I think, most clearly about what her mom said before she passed away. Just because she felt like her mom basically telling her that like she loves her so much because like, you know, when you were a child you clung to me, and now as an adult I'm glad that we still have that relationship where like you love me enough to do it again, and also I'm so happy that you're here to do that. I think that's beautiful. I also think it's like something about daughters and mothers. Wait, maybe I will cry too. I feel like my relationship with my mom is like maybe my favorite relationship I have in my life. I just find it like to be the most like complicated, but also like full of because it's so complicated. I think it's like the most,
it's so fulfilling,
it's the most loving thing. And it's like when I was in my early 20s, I went through a real period of like real depression, and I wasn't living near home, but like every week I would drive home for like I would take the night, drive 2 hours to my hometown to have an hour-long meal with my mom, and drive back. Anyway,
cut the cameras.
And it was like, it's so interesting. Like I was so sad that there were times where I would sit at the table and I wouldn't say a word, but I would just like, I needed the company of my mom. I'm crying.
That's because we love your mom. We love both our moms, you know.
I know, but like I say it all the time. Like I remember telling one of my friends that it was like I felt really embarrassed at the time because I was like, that's so stupid. I did that every day for like 5 months straight, or every week for 5 months straight, and like one of our friends, Carly, my queen, I remember telling her that I was like, you're so stupid. She was like, no, like you needed that. Like you needed your mom. And I was like, yeah, like it's so interesting, like in like those moments of like real sadness, it's like really like it's like the thing is true, like it's like you just want your mom.
Yeah, I remember when something when I went through a big life change a few months ago, and I was like here by myself, you know, I'm far away from my family, and you know, my mom was like, are you free to call, like, you know, and I called her and I was, you know, telling her about everything, and like like it was you know, it was something happening in my life that was hurting me, and like she was crying
because
literally page 18, first quote that I wrote down, when I got hurt she felt it so deeply it was as though it was her own affliction. like you know, it's like I've always known my mom has loved me, right? But during that call, sorry,
no,
trying to not like burst.
It's the crying section of the podcast.
we can mark it on YouTube. The little bookmark. Like having that call and in hearing her cry, and it's like I know that she was crying partly because she was like really sad for me, but also I felt like she was just sad too. It was like, oh, like that's like my mom loves me so deeply, even if she can't understand everything I'm feeling, she knows enough. She's feeling closely to as deeply as I'm feeling, you know? It's like that's somebody who loves you very deeply is gonna cry when you cry, you know? If you have a mom, you should read this book. Which is everybody. Like, it's, you know,
so true. There's like what I think is the thesis statement of the book is when her mom, she does this thing where every time like Michelle cries as a kid. She goes, "Save your tears for when your mom dies," and it's kind of like her saying like, "Don't cry over spilled milk" or something. I think like hearing that, because it comes up throughout the book a couple times.
Yeah.
And it like hearing that echo throughout the book, I think is really devastating at first. Like at first you hear it and it's kind of jarring to hear. And the second time you hear it, you're like, you kind of know that it's ultimately we are going to be facing that end result. And then the last time we hear it, it's like she's having a conversation with her aunt in Korea and she starts crying. I think it's because she doesn't know how to communicate with her aunt. Correct. I think that's why she starts crying, and she just like kind of like misses her mom, but like she feels the connection somewhat through her aunt. And so she just like breaks out into tears, and she like kind of laughs and goes, "Save your tears when your mom dies," I guess. Like it turns into almost a comforting statement, because it's like, I think just like, I don't think it's like Michelle didn't give herself the space to grieve, but I think that final time that she can like repeat that phrase, it's kind of like her being like, "Oh yeah, like this hurts and everyone knows it hurts, and my mom told me this was going to be one of the moments where I can sit and properly cry
and lean into that and let it out." And
it's also a moment where it's like, you know, her mom heard that a lot when she was younger, so she's been in this experience before, and so like that was a phrase that she stole from her mom, and it's gone down the line, I guess. But it's one of those things that just like brings back that feeling of like, oh, I hear my mom everywhere, like I see my mom everywhere. Even like when you're grieving her and you're like crying about her, you're like, oh, and then this is what she told me was gonna happen. Like it's just like, I think she talks about this in the book, but like your whole life you're just gonna see your mom everywhere, like even when you're over the pain or like or the rawness of it, like it's like everything's gonna remind you of your mom.
Speaking of her aunt, I really liked how right at the end of the book it was saying like they're kind of both looking at each other. She said, "I could feel Nami searching for something in me that I had spent the last week searching for in her. Not quite my mother and not quite her sister. We existed in that moment as each other's next best thing." I thought that was a really sweet sentiment, that they both know, like, you know, they both lost the same person, but they each had their own mother versus sister relationship, and they're kind of realizing like, you know, we're never gonna get her back, but we do have each other. We both loved this woman so much, and like we both love each other too, like through extension, you know, kind of through the love of her. And I don't know, I just thought that was really like comforting for Michelle probably to, you know, like realize. I
think after her mom dies, like, you know, like Michelle finds her photos, and like she has this really sad kind of realization where she's like, my mom was my archive. And she said, how bittersweet for a child to retrace the image of her mother, for a subject to turn back to to document their archivist. Ooh, which by the way, fantastic way to talk about every child's relationship with their mother. But you know, there's a moment I think where she just feels like really like almost a stranger in her own body, because like when you know, her mom, when she died, I think she took a lot of Michelle's identity with her, unfortunately, just because she also died so young, when Michelle was so young and when her mom was young. And so, you know, there's so much more memories and stories and lives that they could have had together. And anyway, I love the idea of her being able to go to Korea and connect with her aunt, and know that when people pass, what's great about just like living on Earth is that like you pass yourself on to other people. And so like I think there's this moment where like she feels like she lost a great amount of like a wealth of knowledge and just like things about her mother when her mom passed. But you know, having that whole moment with like her aunt in Korea, I think it's just like she's realizing that like, yeah, my mom is still here in different ways, you know, and they're like, you know, she didn't lose everything. Like there are still places where she can find her mom.
That's true.
I think that's like one of the best ways, I think, for her to have like really like wrapped up at least this book. I know her grief journey is forever, but like I loved that was kind of where she decided to kind of really try to wrap up her story in this book. Is like her journey going to South Korea and finding her mom in the world, where she kind of had that, after she had that moment of like feeling like she wasn't gonna like she lost something that was what's it called when you can't get something back? Unretrievable. Okay. Or irretrievable. I don't know, but
non-retrievable. I have no idea.
Who's to say? It's not like one of us has
cannot be retrieved.
Yes, exactly. So I don't know, I thought that was a really good place, I think, for us to really wrap up the book.
This book was really well narrated, and we start out at the H Mart. We start out crying in the H Mart.
Oh, I love that. That's like the first line in the book.
Yeah. And so it's like we're set up from the beginning. We know that her mom has died. We know that food is important, and like the kind of trail of meals and recipes and flavors through the whole book gave it a good structure for a memoir. I feel like sometimes memoirs could, I guess not necessarily just memoirs, but sometimes in like nonfiction books, I feel like don't have a clear path to follow through the whole through the whole novel, and I just feel like she wove everything together so well, from like, I mean, I guess it's all technically in the past, but kind of like the flashbacks versus the more like present things were happening. I guess 10 out of 10 or whatever you said, 5 stars, like I'm just like, I just am really glad that we read this. So
me too. I think like speaking a little bit to that, it's just like I've read so many, and I'm not an expert on nonfiction / memoir books. I'm not an expert because I have not read so many. The ones that I've read and haven't really loved as much as I love this one are like books where it's just like essentially it's somebody who's maybe more famous and they're kind of walking you through the story of their life. So like you said, it's not really a condensed story. It's just a series of like moments in their life that led to where they are now. And so a lot of times I find that there are like chapters I really enjoy, but like as far as like a whole concrete story, I feel kind of disconnected or like not so much interested. With this, I think because Michelle decided to write a story about her relationship with her mother and really just like hyper focus on like this relationship and then the grief of that relationship. What's so lovely is it's like it's a story all about her mother. But since it's a story all about her mother, it's therefore also a story so much about her culture. And since it's a story about her mother and her culture, it's therefore so much of a story about her. Yeah. And so at the end of it, like, it's like you start off and you're like, she's somebody who does not feel connected to herself. And by the end of it, you realize that, like, because she misses her mother, she's learning about her mother. And because she's learning about her mother, she's learning about her culture. And because she's learning about her mother and her culture, she's coming back into herself as a person and learning about her identity.
So true.
It's really lovely. And I
love that.
Yeah. And so it's like, I'm like, this is truly like a really great proper memoir because like you said, it's just like very much a story in and of itself and about a kind of single topic, but it's about so much more than that outside of it. And yeah, it's so well done. Very, very well done.
Yeah, this was a good first nonfiction for us.
Truly.
I feel like that was a really beautiful last thought to end on.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Okay, sweet. So like B said, we both really love this book, and let us know if you have any additional thoughts about anything we talked about, anything we might have not talked about. Let us know.
Send us a message in the Discord.
Email, YouTube anything. Spotify comments. That is the thing.
We are available.
We will be checking and we will be responding.
Yep.
Also, let us know what your thoughts are on us branching out into nonfiction because we yet to do this, and I appreciated it. I think it's because we picked a really good first book. Yeah, but.
We will be going back to fiction for next month.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about... Wait, let's announce our book for next month. I forgot about that.
Do you have one?
I don't have the copy. So
okay, me neither.
You guys pretend it's here. Everyone knows the cover, though. It's like a classic. So for the month of June, I guess, our June month of reading is we're going to be reading The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, B and I have yet to read this book, but
we've never read.
It's been on the list for a while.
We've seen the movie.
A classic. A classic coming of age story too. I'm really excited. I think we were talking about this beforehand, but we were like, cool. So kind of like 2 Debbie Downers in a row. Very excited. Very excited to get into that. Wait, actually,
summer
3
reads.
Yeah, because Sunrise on the Reaping was also sad. So we went from Sunrise to Crying in H Mart to Perks Being Wildflower.
So maybe in July we'll read something a little more upbeat. No promises.
Yeah, I would. Hey,
but we'll try.
I would love to not cry on the podcast. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think I'm 2 for 2 right now. Yeah, I did cry in Sunrise on the
Let's keep that streak going.
Hey, you're so right though. Like summer reading challenge. But yeah, so if you guys, I'm actually excited for this because like I think this is a classic that a lot of people have read or at least have interest in talking about, and so I think it'll be fun. And it's a short book once again, so if you're just looking for a book to kind of like dip your toe in to getting back into reading for the summer or whatever, I think this is a really good one to do.
And it's very relevant to the culture, so you know.
True. I know. I'm excited to see kind of how it reads.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for listening to Read the Last Page. Our music and illustrations were created by the amazing Sage Timothy.
If you don't know our schedule yet, we host our book club episodes on the first Friday of each month. So next month, like I said, we will be reading Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. That episode will be out on the first Friday of July, so be sure to pick up a copy and read it by then if you want to discuss it with us.
Before we get to the last page, though, we'll see you in 2 weeks for a catch-up episode where it's just your besties talking. You can find us on your podcast platform of choice, or if you'd rather watch your podcast, you can find us on YouTube at Read the Last Page. And we have to shout out the Patreon and the Discord, which we just added. All the details on that were in our last episode, but we'll try to keep those links, in our Instagram and TikTok bios or wherever.
True.
Or you can just go to the website and search us up. It's always Read the Last Page. Sometimes it might be Read the Last Page Book Club.
Yes.
But yeah, for now we want to say bye from B
and Dan.
Bye.